Welcome back. This is The Fix with me, Karima Brown. And now we trawl through our Sunday newspapers. And with me is Deputy Editor of the Financial Mail, Mr. Sikonathi Mantshantsha. Mr. Mantshantsha, good morning, rather. Thank you very much for taking time out to come and talk to us.
Morning, Karima. Thanks for the invite.
Peter, what's up
Sikonathi,
in the headlines?
so we had a look at City Press today. I have a favourite story today. Let's see whether we come across the same one. City Press telling the ANC telling the SACP to sit down. It'll give in to some demands and not others. There's a very interesting piece. You know, I think President Ramaphosa has just signed into law a new powers for the Auditor-general. So they've got Kimmy battles the looting machine on City Press as well. But the story that I most like today is the prospect of having Jeff Radebe have to explain to the Zondo Commission why he tried to assume some of the powers of the National Treasury when he was still serving another president called Zuma. And that wasn't all that long ago. That was about 18 months ago.
Peter, that was even less than 18 months ago when Jacob Zuma and indeed Jeff Radebe tried to usurp the powers of the National Treasury, which led to the resignation of Michael Sachs, the head of the Budget Office. Basically, they said, you guys at National Treasury are not interested in the work of the government, in the priorities of the government, in the national development.
You keep saying no.
You keep saying no, we want nuclear, you say no, we want this, you say no, we want that, you say no. We'll take the powers. And then, of course, the National Treasury started coming under attack. The proponents of that thing called radical economic transformation and something called white monopoly capital, those people led the attack. And silently, Jeff Radebe was marching in front, trying to get the powers for himself, which did die down a bit when Pravin Gordhan came back again as finance minister. Those attempts, they never gave up. So Jeff Radebe has to tell the people of South Africa. And there was no attempt, by the way, to change the law, which gave National Treasury the authority to conduct the budget affairs of the nation.
In fact, that is, for me, the central point here, Peter. It was a patently illegal act. There is no law, like you say, Sikonathi, that would have allowed this to have happened. But we saw, for example, in other instances, laws didn't really matter for the crowd that wanted their hands on Treasury, did it?
Look, the laws of the Republic stood in the way of the looters. And Jeff Radebe, in this instance, he was minister in the monitoring and evaluation department.
But a previous justice minister.
He's the guy that actually gifted us with a lot of the people that we are trying to get rid of in the National Prosecuting Authority. But he was marching in now, trying to take powers illegally. And he was warned by his own staff, according to the Sunday Times, that this was illegal. Of course it was, because it's in the Constitution. Not only any other, but it's in the Constitution. Only National Treasury.
How does Jeff Radebe survive? I mean, he's been in cabinet right from the start, right?
He's the longest-serving minister since 1994. He was there in various.
How does he do that?
I wish I knew, Peter. But you now know. Jeff Radebe is again this senior minister who is trusted by this president to look after the priorities, including that no small matter of energy. Being Minister of Energy in this country means you're driving the economy. That's where he is. He had to be trusted by Jacob Zuma to do the exact opposite in the previous administration.
But does he just do what he's told? And maybe that's why presidents keep picking him.
In the ANC, that's how people get to the top. The ANC tells you this, and you do it, and they of course lie and say, I'm a disciplined and loyal member of the ANC, when they actually are working exactly against the ANC and against the Republic.
Let's talk about this Kimmy battles the looting machine story. I mean, there's been a long fight to actually give teeth to the Auditor-general. And, you know, report after report tells us the same thing. But there is no consequence management. This is the first real attempt at consequence management. What do you think and make of the story? But more importantly, can it actually happen? Will implementation actually happen?
Before this, the Auditor-general was only reduced to monitoring and do nothing. Monitoring without interfering or correcting anything. It would just say, Karima, you misspent a lot of the money here. You did not follow policies. This is wasteful expenditure. You bought things or committed the government to do things it should not have done, and they would end it at that. It would have to be for the leadership of that particular organization or department to then try and recover the money or prosecute. But no one in South Africa has ever been prosecuted under the public for contravening the Public Finance Management Act, which governs all government entities and departments. The Municipal Finance Management Act, nobody has. Year in, year out, billions get lost because officials just decide, oh, it's year end, we haven't spent the money. They buy desks and things and fancy things and even actually steal the money. What this does, the Auditor-General will actually be able to enforce the law and say, you spent the money, here is your certificate of debt, you owe the government this amount of money and here's the demand, we want it back. And there will be prosecutions for contravening. So it will, it's
a
really
departure, a massive departure.
It's a massive departure from only guidelines in the Public Finance Management Act and the Municipal Finance Management Act to where there will be prosecutions. And indeed, if you're a chief financial officer, for example, of Eskom, of Transnet, you sign away monies illegally, they will go after you personally to recover the money and indeed where you may have sent it.
So all Anoj Singh's, accumulated wealth can become after. The key question, of course, is this going to be retroactive?
No, exactly. It's not. In South Africa, the law is not retroactive. So they will from now on pursue irregular expenditure.
When does it take effect?
I'm not sure if so here it's been signed already. It takes 6 months to the best of my understanding. It takes about 6 months to be enacted.
Peter, the other story, of course, is the Sunday Times front
page.
The Sunday Times lead. I mean, it's an interesting story. It's interesting in the context of the Sunday Times too, because I like my Sunday Times to be a little bit more political than this.
Yes.
But it's a very hard written story about how illegal mining has brought Johannesburg to the brink of a real disaster. These people are mining and blasting very close to gas lines and other infrastructure, which should they cause an explosion on a gas line, you're really talking about a lot of damage upstairs, up on the surface that. That could kill a lot of people. And we all know anyway that we live on top of a rabbit warren of mines and tunnels.
But also we've got an inner city where the majority of buildings, for example, is simply not safe. Public servants are at risk. So this is actually a story.
And one of the interesting things
massive
about houses in Joburg, they've all got cracks, and that. I mean, they all move all the time. I mean,
I've got a massive crack in my wall. You can literally see through my wall into my house as a result.
Waiting to happen here is what we see month in, month out in the Niger Delta in Nigeria, where people just harvest the fuel for themselves. These guys digging for gold underground in Johannesburg, bumping into Egoli gases pipes or Sasol or the Transnet, the massive pipeline that brings us fuel to Johannesburg, has the potential to cause massive explosions. The problem really is that there is no one policing or enforcing any law. The fact that mining in South Africa is illegal by these Zamazamas is a concern on its own. If you could regulate that, then people would mine safely without endangering themselves and the city. But as you can see, between the national government and indeed the city or even the province, the left hand doesn't know what the right is doing. The issue is to protect the infrastructure, and no one is doing that. Only once there is an explosion where innocent people and property gets destroyed will we jump and cry. So well done to the Sunday Times for bringing a very important but non-political story.
Peter, I want to bring attention to a story that I found really interesting, which is, I think, in the Sunday Sun. I'm not sure if we have a Sunday World, my apologies. You've got it in front of you, the Sunday World. And it says that essentially there's been a break-in, a robbery at Floyd Shivambu's posh townhouse, and apparently only laptops and phones were stolen. And what I found really interesting, Peter, in that story is that the people who stole apparently and broke into the apartment told Floyd because he wouldn't believe them, and he only believed them when they were talking to him about his whiskies, which he apparently
so they called him. They broke in and then called him to say that we'd broken into your house.
Yes, I mean, it's a remarkable story. What do you make of it, Sikonathi?
So the thieves break into your house and then give you a call and admire your whiskies, which they didn't take. It can only appear in the Sunday Times, in the Sunday World.
Yes.
It's too good to be true, of course. And it's quite convenient. It's losing the cell phones and the laptops that will be very necessary.
And the jewelry was left.
Jewelry was left behind. All his other, we know that he's a man who loves the finest things in life. They leave behind all his Louis Vuittons and things. It's quite too good to be true and convenient, particularly with regards to the allegations against him and the EFF with the looting of the VBS Mutual Bank. What will be the investigators looking for? They'll be looking for a laptop. They'll be looking for his cell phones. And the robbers are looking for those too.
So there are two theories here. Either he organized the robbery himself, or it was some investigators who went and looking for information about it.
You know what is so funny? When Floyd was at the SRC at Wits, this was what happened to a car. And there was this big debate in the SRC at the time whether the car was genuinely stolen or whether the car was allowed to be stolen. And a lot of SRC members were not resolved on the matter.
Karima,
years later. I mean, what are we dealing with here? Are we dealing with somebody that is in a position to actually manipulate facts and present them in a particular way so that you can set the scene for an attack on, let's say, we are now victims of, state security. I see Minister Kubai, for example, is saying that her offices were bugged. I mean, we spoke with Paulie earlier, just the importance of fact-checking, because we have a world where you have a person like Donald Trump that attacks epistemology, the way we understand facts. Do you think the EFF is sophisticated and way ahead of the game in terms of manipulating information?
Look, I'm glad you raised the matter of the SRC. This was at Wits University, by the way. Where
so you remember that as well?
I know the story. I know the story very well. I was not at Wits, but I know the story very well.
That's kind of legendary.
Yes. I'll tell you, where Floyd goes, things tend to get missing, money in particular. Where Floyd goes, the money will be missing all over the place. We know that from the ANC Youth League. We know that where he is now. And he's now been implicated in the matter of the VBS Mutual Bank. And again, how convenient. These thieves, they just want the laptop and the cell phone. They don't want all these fancy things that may or may not have been bought with the stolen money that has been missing from VBS. And of course, I don't know if the stolen money is that has got anything to do with him. But he has been accused of at least receiving 10 million rands. And what kind of thief steals a bloody phone?
Absolutely. Sikonathi, thank you very much. Always a pleasure to speak to you. Peter, obviously, I'm really glad you're back.
Me too.
I like the fact that you enjoyed Ireland. You've had your fix for the week. Take care. We'll see you next week.